We've been through a lot. If we can weather this, we can weather a lot of things.
It's been a year of dramatic change for these farmers after their land and homes were intentionally flooded last spring. Tomorrow marks 1 year since the breach of the Birds Point levee in southeast Missouri. The levee sits here near the point where Missouri, Kentucky, and Illinois come together, an area where last year historic flooding along the Mississippi and Ohio rivers reached critical mass. On May 2nd of last year, the Army Corps of Engineers blew up portions of the levee to help relieve pressure on floodwalls at river cities like Cairo. The breach came after days of waiting and watching the waters continue to rise. At the center of that drama were the people who call the spillway home. We met several of them last spring and talked to them again recently to see how things are going 1 year later. It looks like any other road in Mississippi County. But for Ray and Roy Presson, this view now has a whole new meaning. Rewind 12 months and it was a much different picture. Water as far as the eye could see. When the Army Corps of Engineers decided to blow the Birds Point levee, the Pressons were right in the crosshairs. Some of the 130,000 acres that were intentionally flooded is the land that's been in their family since 1910. They've lived and worked here their entire lives.
It was hard, and up until the time they blew it, we just really believed it wasn't going to happen.
We just had faith that it would still be here and we'd be able to farm.
And that's exactly what they're doing. The Pressons feel fortunate. Their 2,400 acres sit at the high point of the spillway. They had damage, but their most important resource, the land, was still intact. Not everyone was as lucky.
We knew if we get the water off, we'd get a crop planted. Just no problem with that. Today's machinery, you can get across the ground in a hurry.
The Pressons lost their entire wheat crop last year, $250,000. Crop insurance covered only half that, and they couldn't plant corn last year either. This spring, both are in the ground at a price. In the aftermath of the flood, insurance on their wheat doubled. And with the crops planted, the cleanup continues.
We had a lot of ditches silted in, but that's fixable, more so than if your land had really been damaged.
Breaching the levee changed some things forever. This was where Ray Presson lived, but now for the first time in more than a century, he and his family can no longer call this house home.
It's very hard. Yeah. Chances are we'll try to build a mound out here and put a house on it eventually.
For now, more waiting. The Pressons are eagerly anticipating the day the levee is rebuilt to its pre-blast height, 62.5 feet, to ensure all their hard work doesn't get washed away.
For this area, that's about the most important thing we can have.
The Pressons will never forget what happened here last spring, but they're not dwelling on it. After all, they have a job to do.
It wasn't long after the flood, they had the Joplin tornado, and you had to feel fortunate that all we had was a flood.
We just have faith that we just keep going on, do what we do.
The Corps of Engineers plans to have the levee restored to 62.5 feet by the end of the year, weather permitting. The Corps stands by its decision to breach the levee, saying recently the move prevented more than $100 billion in damage to the river system.